Hey everybody, welcome to the In All Things podcast. It's time to see God in everything.
What is up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the In All Things podcast. And this is actually the last episode of this season of the podcast. We're going to take a little bit of a break over the summer, and then we'll be back towards the fall. I am joined today by Layne and Macie Earnhart, and we're going to talk a little bit about The Well. If you're not familiar, I don't know why you wouldn't be familiar, but The Well is our student program here at Sycamore Creek Church. And it struck me when I first showed up. I've been helping a little bit with the student worship over there. The worship culture at The Well is so unique and cool and special. And so I thought we'd spend some time talking about that. How do you feel about that, ladies?
Sounds good.
Cool?
I'm excited.
Cool. Well, I mean, you're here, so this is what we're going to talk about.
Yeah.
All right. Well, how would you describe the worship culture at The Well on Sunday nights? How would you describe it, Macie?
I'd say it's really chill and laid back. It's very because you're surrounded by people your age, and it's kind of you connecting with each other. Not much. I wouldn't say not much joy, but it's not always going to be ramped up. It's really just bottom line, just chilled out.
Okay. Layne?
So I agree with that. I think it's definitely a step back from Sunday morning worship where it's there's a track and there's a full band and it's loud and,
Production, lights, yeah.
Obviously, yeah. But I think The Well is just kind of a place where we can be kind of vulnerable and sometimes it can be a little bit awkward just because there isn't that music, but I think we do a really good job of working with that, and I think the students are really receptive to that, which I really
acoustic.
Really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it's acoustic, I think, in part by necessity. I mean, it's student-led, so your options are whatever instruments other students play, right? And you lead the band starting this year, right? That's kind of new?
I would say, it was whenever a friend of ours, John, used to lead it a lot, but that was... Man, I don't even know when that was. Probably about a year, maybe a year and a half.
Yeah, he graduated, I think, and so he moved out of The Well, and you took over, which is cool. Do you feel like that stripped back kind of chill vibe of The Well makes it more or less relatable to newcomers? If you're a first-timer, obviously you've been here your whole life. You're not a newcomer at SEC or The Well at all. But you're a freshman. So you've been going to The Well for a couple of years now. How do you feel like that form of raw and honest and stripped back worship, where people are being so vulnerable, how do you feel like that comes across for people who maybe are being invited by a friend, maybe it's their first time there? What do you think about that? Layne, we'll start with you.
So I think since we have such a good student population that really does connect with the music and fully is singing out and everything, the acoustic vibe can kind of help newcomers because I feel like they can see how receptive the students are to it already, and then they can kind of be this is cool, and I think that's a really important thing to have, that new students can look around and see other students that have been here for a while get into it and fully worship God. And I think it's really cool for new people to see that.
Yeah, I think one of the things that struck me about worship at The Well is I've been a few churches in my life, and I've been to a lot of youth groups in my life, and a lot of times youth group worship is super high energy. Let's get these kids pumped up. We're gonna do some crazy games, and you look around during the worship segment, and it's all of the guys are too embarrassed to sing, and so they're just standing there staring. And all the girls, some of them are singing, some of them are, looking back at some of the guys because it's high school and, drama is always a thing. And that is not the case at The Well at all. People, when worship starts, they're into it, they're engaged, they're ready to sing to God and pour out their hearts, which I think is super cool. There's also just being in the worship myself. There's a great there's a great analogy that I like to make. There's a phrase that says sometimes you have to lean on the faith of others, meaning sometimes life is hard and you can lean on other people's faith to get you through. And I think the same thing applies to worship, which is what you're describing, which is sometimes you may not feel like worshiping God or your mind may be somewhere else, but if everyone around you has decided, no, we're going to worship God together, it kind of sucks you in and helps you engage fully, as opposed to having part of your mind, stuck in whatever math class or whatever you got going on at home. Macie, what do you think?
I feel like, because I've much as well been like around a lot of places, and it's everything you said about that is like totally realistic, because like when you see, like, I've invited multiple people like to the well and they're like regulars there now.
Yeah.
Especially when you can see how receptive the students are with the worship, and they're like, whether they know what worship is or not, they're gonna sing anyway, or try to at least, because they see other people doing it.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where that starts for most people, is like just building on top of that emotion in the room.
That's awesome. Very cool. So both of you are also on worship team on Sunday mornings here and there, which is awesome. It's great to. Oh, they just turned off the lights in the worship center. Yeah. Anyway, both of you guys are also on worship team and Sunday mornings, and so I think it's cool that you guys have a unique perspective, because you get to see kind of how the whole process of worship for Sunday morning, and then you guys get to go and create process for the well and do it differently and tailored to students. How do you balance excellence and vulnerability and being honest with perfectionism and trying to get it right at all costs? Macie, since you lead the band, we'll start with you.
I've kind of thought about this a little bit as well, but whenever, especially like during rehearsal, it's like we're just kind of like going through the songs, like really chill and laid back, and we're not so like strict with it, because I know on Sunday mornings we'll have like a set, like just like who and so are on, so and so are not, like things like that.
Yeah.
At the well, it's more like sing if you feel like it.
Sure.
But not in more in like it's still organized, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of, because balancing that, as you said, it's just kind of finding the medium between and being able to just kind of relay that back to the students.
Sure. Layne?
I think it goes back to the whole like environment thing, because I feel like you said, at like rehearsal, like we can kind of be a little bit more not as like structured with what we do, but then when it comes time to actually do worship for the students, I think we all step into that environment and really focus like our minds, and it's like we all understand that we're not perfect, like everyone's gonna make mistakes, and I feel like even when that does happen, we're so like in the moment that we can quickly move past that, and like everything is okay, which is so cool.
Yeah. I like that it doesn't feel like there's a ton of like pressure from the students in the crowd, from the people on stage. There's not a pressure to nail it and get it perfect, but there is a sense of like, we're doing this for God and not for each other. So let's give each other grace and really just do our best to focus on Him, which I love. Maybe Layne, you can answer this more, because you've been there your whole since 7th grade. You've been in the well, right?
Yeah.
When did the well get so raw and unashamed about their worship in terms of the students? Is that new, or has that always been kind of the DNA of the well?
I think it...
Because Kids Live is different, right? Kids Live, especially, Kids Live is a Sunday morning, and it's as for elementary school, and then you've got Diversion, which is its own thing as well. But in terms of using that room and that space, I think the closest is Kids Live, which is very fun, poppy, and kids are having a blast, as they should. But the well is obviously, like we've been describing, it's very different, and it's good different. It's not bad different. It's just different. So, but has it always been that? Can you remember back?
Well, I feel like it all kind of started when, so Mitch's friend Cam was running the well worship for a while. And when he kind of introduced that, he was just like, okay, like we need to build a worship team. So if you're at all interested, like try it out. And we would have like different people every week, and we would have that. And I felt like he did a really good job of from the beginning being like, this is new, so work with us. Let us be vulnerable. Let us have like, let us make our mistakes, you know? And I feel like being able to work through that was so great. But then I also feel like Mitch has done such a good job of like I said, stepping into that atmosphere, like every time before worship, like we'll go from our crazy fun game before, and then he'll be like, okay, let's take a moment, like ready ourselves, shift gears. And I feel like doing that is probably the main reason why we have such a good atmosphere at the well for worship.
Yeah, I think he also was just, I'm there, and I've noticed that he really cheerleads and champions the worship there. You know, he sets you guys up for success, and I think he and everybody else in the room wants to see the worship succeed. And by succeed, I just mean that people are engaging God in worship, right? Whatever that looks like. So that's really cool. Macie, do you have any thoughts on that? Or is it, I mean, you know, you've been there since you've been there, so.
Yeah.
But you're leading it now. So you have to take that baton and find where that goes in the future.
Yeah, I remember it was around COVID, and he shifted it. It was like, hey, we have these students coming to the well right now. A lot of people are leaving because of COVID. We're going to let 6th graders come. And I was in 6th grade, so I came a couple times, and I met Layne. It was like your sophomore year. And we were both like, oh, hey, like, don't know you. And just met a lot of people just there, because there weren't a lot of people going in the first place, well, because of COVID. And the well was more of a student, like a youth group, and not so much of a student ministry. Yeah. Like, I feel like there's a little difference between
There is a difference. Yeah, one is, they're both good for different reasons, right? A youth group is a great place to, as a parent, drop your kids off and know that they're going to learn about Jesus and have fun. And I think a student ministry takes that and helps kids shape their lives and how to engage life in a way that honors God, right?
Yeah.
That's my definition, at least. I'm sure there's more. Mitch probably is much more well-versed in it than I am. Whatever, man. I'm just the worship guy. I don't know anything. Okay, so sorry, you were saying. So you showed up at 6th grade, met Layne. It was smaller, COVID.
Yeah. So Cam was there. I think that was right after an older youth pastor we had, Tommy. He kind of left like a year before that or something, and then Mitch took over. And Mitch was newer too, and I was getting to know everybody because I was just a puny little 6th grader. And Cam was, about a year later, was like, hey, we're going to start these things called like creative nights where you can come in. I think it was like Fridays or something. And it was like, we're going to show you like what the tech looks like. We're going to show you like warm-ups, and we're just going to go through it. And I remember being like, not so much into music at the time. Like, I grew up in like a really musical family.
Sure.
And
samesies.
Yeah, over the years it's kind of like build up on each other. But he was like, yeah, we're just gonna do this. And we would choose like a song, and I think it was an old one. It was like Hope Has a Name or something. And like a couple hymns or whatever. And we kind of ran through it, and Jared was there, and he kind of did what you're doing right now, and just kind of gave us like tips and tricks.
Yeah, pointers, encourage, give some advice when I can. Type of deal.
And then after that, we just kind of built a team, and especially after camp and like retreats, everybody would get into it, and that little Jesus high, camp
Absolutely.
high,
yeah.
And so those are always my favorite times, because I know it's like, you guys shouldn't just have this like hype moment. We should have this all the time, but like it's still fun.
But I think because we don't have that all the time, we can still like appreciate it all the time, because like we have those camp moments, and we have those few weeks afterwards where everyone's like excited and everything, but then throughout the year we also have that. Like I feel like that's kind of always
it's gotten a
the
lot
norm.
better.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think Mitch mentioned something along those lines in one of the podcasts earlier this season. But when it comes to camp highs, I see nothing wrong with having a camp high and with feeling like you're on top of the world and super in tune with God. The question is always what happens when that fades away. If that rocks your faith and shakes everything that you think about God, then that's probably a problem. If not, then hey man, welcome to a relationship with Jesus. Like, relationships undergo ups and downs, and in that relationship, all of the downs are 100% our faults because it's God. But that's normal. And as long as you can find the steady after the high, then that's a great thing. Then you should celebrate that God gave you that high, right? That's awesome. Very cool. Well, Macie, since you are leading, what do you feel like are some challenges facing the Well moving into the future? The Well's worship, I should say.
I would say definitely the graduating class, because we got Layne is a senior, Lauren is a senior,
Yeah.
Jacob is a senior, Tyler's a junior, so he'll be gone he'll be gone a couple years.
Yeah.
And then we got Drake on drums in 7th grade. He'll be there longer than me.
Yeah.
And then it's just going to be me, Tyler, and Drake. And it will be a small team. Again, relaying back to Cam, it was usually just Cam and you, or like Cam and Abby. It was like 2 people. Maybe his fiance at the time, Gracie, was up there with them. Love her. And it was like, it's going to be small. And that's kind of all I'm worried about. But then again, coming from, as in like a musical family, like my dad like did worship, and he was also a youth pastor. Like I've just been around that environment and knowing, like, just like putting my faith in God and just kind of praying about it. It will resolve, but there's going to be an awkward moment, I feel like.
I mean, it's got to be an interesting spot just in terms of leading a team, knowing that every person that you're serving with has an expiration date on their graduation, right? Like, I don't have that with my team on Sunday mornings. Like, the closest I have to that is, like, if people decide to switch jobs and move away, which, like, I can't see that coming. I have no clue. But like Drake, he's going to be there longer than you, right? And you've only got X amount of Sunday nights with Layne and Lauren left until they're out of here, right? So that's got to be an interesting dynamic for you to try and navigate as you pour into people and make relationships and serve alongside them, to try and balance how much energy do you put in versus how many, weeks or years, hopefully, are they here for, and all that stuff. That's got to be challenging for you, I'd imagine, right?
Yeah, a little bit, yeah.
Layne, do you on somebody who's on their way out of the Well, do you see any challenges facing the Well's worship moving forward, other than what she said, just people leaving?
Besides that, I don't really think so, just because I feel like we're so adaptable. And like I said, like we've been through that awkward stage before. We've had that happen. So it's like, I feel like anything we try out, anything we do, I feel like the students are going to be willing to work with us. So I feel like that's nice to have. But
that's a good place to be at.
Yeah,
if your biggest concern is just people graduate high school and we don't know what to do after that, but we'll figure it out, I think it's a pretty good spot to be in.
Yeah. And with people graduating, there's always another class coming in.
Yeah,
so
true.
And you never know who's going to be in it. And as of right now, me and Mitch are working on kind of recruiting more people. And it might not be people wanting to right now, but especially during camp, he's going to allow like new incoming 7th graders to come to camp, and we're going to meet them. And
that's awesome.
Hey, you ever heard of the Well? Like, you want to come?
It's so interesting because like so many of you kids from the Well come on Sunday mornings, and obviously diversion happens on Sunday mornings for those middle schoolers. But it's funny how little you cross paths. So it really is that first like bringing up Sunday night is like, hey, we're meeting an entirely new group of people, even though they're like one room over on the Sunday morning, right?
Over on the other side of the wall, and we're like have no clue who
they are. Yeah, for sure. That's so crazy. So more of an esoteric question, I guess, less so well related, but interesting because you're both younger and in the worship space. What do you think the future of big church worship looks like as more and more students graduate and become young adults? That obviously influences culture and worship culture on Sunday mornings. What do you think that looks like, feels like? How may it be different if it's different from what it's like now? What do you think about that, Layne? I'll let Macie go second. She had to go first the last few times. So,
do you mean just specifically at our church?
Let's go church in general.
Church in general?
Yeah. It feels like, as somebody who's in it, it feels like church worship, especially with like larger churches, have just gotten, bigger and crazier and more production and more everything. And what's the newest, like, cutting edge creative idea we can throw at the wall, there's nothing wrong with that at all. Mm-hmm. But from a young person's perspective, do you see that as something that your generation values, wants more of? Like, how do you think is it going to change in the future? And if so, how?
For some aspects, I think yes. Like, I think we're always searching for kind of like the next big thing, like you were saying. Mm-hmm. But then I think it's also really nice that we have started having like the worship programs in youth groups and everything, mm-hmm. because I feel like, sorry.
You're good.
The students will have
You can take a sip of your water if you need to.
I'm good.
Okay.
But I feel like it's important for the students to kind of have that basis so that, the big church like can come back to those vulnerable acoustic moments of worship, which I think is cool.
Mm-hmm.
So it sounds like maybe some more variety.
Yeah, I think it'll just be like different. Mm-hmm. Like, I think it'll be a mix of both.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think?
I feel like a lot of churches, I've seen people call them like, what is it, like a super church or big church or
mega churches?
Mega church, there it is. And it's like, we're gonna fly people in from the ceiling. I don't know, just things like that. And it's just like, you don't want that to distract from the moment,
right?
And from connecting with the Holy Spirit and
mm-hmm.
kind of feeling that in the room. Because if kind of relaying back to like camp and retreats, you're in this room filled with, it could be thousands, it could be hundreds, or it just could be tens of people, mm-hmm. and you can still feel just like God working in these kids' hearts, even though you don't know these people, but you're still connecting with them using music. So mm-hmm. you still want to keep that, even if these are grown adults or toddlers that don't want to go and be separated from their parents.
Sure,
you still want them to at least like experience that in the future as these new generations kind of come in and come out and things like that.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, I think I like that perspective of what's to come. Okay, last question. What do you hope a first-timer's experience at the well is like front to back? Give me the ideal first-time visitor to the well and what their experience is like in your eyes as somebody who is in the thick of it, leading a big part of the well, as somebody who is exiting the well soon-ish. What does that look like? Macie, you go first.
I feel like I've seen a lot of different people. Mostly it's this girl or boys coming in. Mm-hmm. They're like, my friend invited me or my parents are making me come. Either way.
Of course.
And it's like, I see all these people. And for me, it was like a sensory overload because mm-hmm. there were so many people in this tiny space.
A lot going on.
And you're younger, so you don't know how to handle that very mm-hmm. well. And so I'm hoping, and we're kind of working on this as well, is like as these new people come in and these new people that we have no idea who they are, I would like to I try to touch base with people I don't know in general, mm-hmm. As much as possible, just because I want to be able to know like, oh, this is so and so, they're into this and this and this. I wonder like I can engage in conversations with these people and kind of get to know them and where they stand, and so we can relay that and kind of pick, especially like choosing songs for Sundays, like how will they relate to these songs mm-hmm. and how will it relate to the message coming from Mitch, mm-hmm. and just trying to touch base with that. So
yeah, make it a more inviting and maybe cohesive experience for newcomers. I like that. Okay, cool. Layne, what do you think? What's the ideal first-time visitor to the Wells experience look like?
So I do think we do a pretty good job of welcoming new people, but mm-hmm. I think it starts with like when they walk in the door and there's the people checking people in and being like, hey, have you been here before? Mm-hmm. Have that first kind of initial impression of people that are like welcoming you in. And
a lot of time those check-in people are also students.
Exactly.
Like there's usually some adult leader nearby, but usually it's students welcoming students in, which is super cool.
And that's important too. And so like, as soon as they check in, and then maybe they can talk to maybe an older student that, can kind of introduce them, that knows the ropes and can kind of be like, oh, well, we have this going on. You can kind of do whatever you want for now, like maybe hang out with them a little bit. And then just kind of having that space when we do go into worship and the message, like having at least someone you can kind of look at and kind of get the vibe from and kind of see what's going on. And then maybe in that moment they can be open to what's going on, what the message is, what God wants to do in their lives.
Are we in a series right now? What is it? Okay, maybe I'll come back next week and check out where this goes.
Yeah.
That's very cool. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining me on the last episode of this season of the podcast, Layne, Macie. If you are somebody who would be in high school or starts in 7th grade, check out The Well. It's a great place. It's a great place to make friends, to learn about life and God and Jesus and how all of those things work together, and to find people who are also trying to figure it out as well. Sunday nights at what time?
6 to 8. 6
to 8. Usually there's games and it's always worship and always a great message, and it's a great time. So, or if you have a kid and you're watching this and they don't go, like you said, some people are forced to go and then they're there every week because it's great.
Oh, yeah.
So please consider checking it out, and I'll see you guys in the next season of the In All Things podcast. Bye.
Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the In All Things podcast. Our challenge for you today is to send this episode to one person. Seriously, think of somebody right now that could use this conversation and send it to them. If you have any questions, feedback, or topic ideas, please send them to podcast@sycamorecreek.org, and make sure you follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Sycamore Creek Church so that you can always see what's going on in our world. If this conversation helped you at all, make sure you share it, leave a review, and subscribe so that you don't miss out on a single episode. We love you, God loves you, and we'll see you next week on the In All Things podcast.